Hello.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You killed my father.
Prepare to die.
Ah!
Does anybody want a peanut? And welcome to episode 10 of the Nerdkast. Welcome, everybody. These are my compatriots. We have Austin. Say what's up, Austin.
What's up, Austin?
Daniel.
Heyo.
Kevin.
Yo.
And making his debut on our show, we are super happy to have him, Mr. Ryan Resnick. How are you, sir?
What's up? What's up, guys? Thank you for having me. Thank you so much
for joining.
Yeah, of course. This is my first time being on a podcast. Not my first Zoom call, though. No, that's like every day.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, every single day. You ain't kidding.
Yeah, right.
So today we're going to be talking about The Princess Bride, but a couple of programming notes before we get started. Please, if you haven't already, we have Facebook, Twitter, we've got YouTube. Pretty much podcast is everywhere where you would probably look for it, so please check it out if you haven't already. Like and subscribe on all our different social media BS. I know it takes like 3 seconds, so that'd be awesome. The other thing is next week, well, let's go over the next week and a half. Thursday we are recording a interview with Alexis Baroni, I think that's her last name. Oh fuck.
Yeah, it's Baroni.
We're going to be talking to her, just kind of get some insight into her like kind of career and just like her viewpoint on the industry and everything. So that should be interesting. Next Tuesday, or I guess a week from today, we're recording our season 1 WandaVision review. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be good. Super pumped for that. And then Thursday of next week, so a week from this Thursday, is the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. I believe it came out in 2002. So super pumped to talk about that one. But everybody, we have a great amount of stuff to talk about today. Again, we're talking about Princess Bride, so let's fire away. Austin,
You wish.
Roughly, how old were you when you first saw this movie?
Roughly, I was 20 years old. I'm very late to the game for The Princess Bride. It was recommended to me by a partner at the time. She fully recognized that I was into the campy acting that was present in Adam West's Batman. And she said, this is going to be right up your alley because I love fantasy. I love, just classic adventure movies and stories. Yeah, just that's about all I got for that one.
Yeah, no, it's a short question. I myself was actually very late to the game for my generation. I didn't see it till like maybe college. So 2008, 2009. I had known about it and I saw snippets of it, but I never actually watched the whole movie, and everybody always quoted it. It was kind of like Journey's Don't Stop Believing. I was like, what the fuck are you all talking about?
Yeah.
But
sorry, I should put a year on that. That was like 2016, 2017 probably, I think.
Think about it too. It's not exactly like a kid's movie. Like it has kid elements, but it's got some mature stuff in it too. But Ryan, how old were you about?
So my history with The Princess Bride, I've seen it like in bits and pieces like throughout my life or whatever. Like I can't tell you like the first time I saw it, as definitely as a little kid. But I always thought that it was like a goofy, I always thought it was like a Mel Brooks type thing.
Oh,
it was like a Monty Python and the Holy Grail type situation. So like I never really like took it too seriously or realized that, realized really what it was. I just, I didn't see it as like this, love story, this Rob Reiner love story. I just, I thought it was supposed to be like a comedy that wasn't funny, So it's hysterical now that I'm older, but, growing up, I thought it was supposed to be like Robin Hood Men in Tights. And I'm like, where's all the dick and fart jokes?
It is much closer to that than it is, say, like The Lord of the Rings or something to be taken like very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's still taken seriously. It's just,
yeah. It's trying to be something else. That's kind of, like you said, like Robin Hood Men in Tights and Monty Python are probably like the perfect, kind of genre for this. And it even kind of like comes across as like almost like a B movie between like, I don't know. It seems like a direct to TV movie in the production quality.
It's it's like if it wasn't like for, I'm about to say something just totally outlandish, but no, like Rob Reiner and Carrie Elways and Robin Wright, Andre the Giant, and having like Wallace Shawn and oh my god, Inigo Montoya, his
Mandy Patinkin.
Yes, like stars now. Back then, were they? I don't know if they were, the same.
Maybe not. This is almost like pre Toy Story, which is what I feel like launched Wallace Shawn as like a household name and stuff. I mean, like he's a crazy good actor, but him as Rex in Toy Story is always what I think of when I hear him.
I think in the end credits of this scene, Robin Wright is actually and like as introducing Robin Wright. So I feel like this. I think so was her first like big like movie role.
And kind of crazy to see where her career has gone post this. And obviously, like Miracle Max, I didn't realize till this time Miracle Max is Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
Mike Wazowski.
Yeah.
Which is why I love him so much.
Oh yeah. So Kevin, roughly how old were you when you first got to lay eyes on this?
I want to say I was 10. It was a tradition of my neighbors. They would all like sit around and watch it. Like they were like, do you want to see like the cheesiest movie like ever made? And like that was like all they gave me. And so, and always afterwards we would always quote like, is this a kissing book? Like
Yes.
And so it just became an inside joke with them. So about 10, and then like a couple of years later, like I realized like they'd show it at camp pretty much every year, just like a good like camp movie because everybody can quote it,
Oh, for sure. Daniel, what about you, man?
So I believe I was around 14. Like I remember in the Boy Scouts some of the other guys were quoting rodents of unusual size, and I eventually decided I was gonna like find out what that meant.
Dude, something else I caught this time. ROUSs. You mean rodents of unusual size?
I don't think they exist.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and so yeah, eventually, like I'm like, what movie is this that you all keep quoting? And then finally, like, oh, it's Princess Bride, and I'm like, have I seen that? And
what the hell are you all talking about?
Yeah, no, I think finally I watched it like all the way through, and I'm like, oh, this is what they're quoting. Mm-hmm. The exact same thing happened with Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And that was actually you and Nick quoting all of that.
I was going to say, Nick showed that to me when I was in like 9th or 10th grade. I'd never seen it before. I was like, what the hell is this movie? This movie is amazing. God, that'll be a fun one to review. All of theirs.
Oh, man.
But, okay. Great. Everybody. So everybody sat with this movie for a little while. It's not like this was anybody's first time. Nobody popped their cherry on this walk through.
You know what? This is possibly my first time like sitting down and watching it all the way through, which is really funny because like right as like the credits rolled or whatever, and you saw Rob Reiner's credit or whatever, like you sent out the link and I was like, all right, it's time.
All right.
We have a nice little section at the end, Ryan, where you'll be able to give like your like gush like couple minute long review of like what you thought. So
well,
definitely let us know then.
Ryan, I'm coming right to you right now. What are your overall thoughts on this film?
Well, there you go.
So, well, I mean, it lived up to everything that I have absorbed via the media and whatnot. But one thing that like I guess I didn't really pick up on as a little kid or have absorbed through YouTube shows, whatever that cover this topic. Is at the very end, the grandpa says, "As you wish" to the grandson, and I was like, "Man, that hit me right here in the old Corazon." Having a special relationship, with my grandfathers and what. Like, oh, that's nice. It's a feel good movie. So, and I think I'd never read the book, but I believe like it ends differently or whatever. I think it ends more ambiguously, is like whether or not Buttercup and Wesley actually make it or not, happily ever after. But
that would actually be more interesting, wouldn't it, if they just left it ambiguous at the end?
Yeah, but also like I feel like that ending, is more undeserved. I mean, with everything like Game of Thrones and whatnot, fantasy, ending and like darkly is pretty, mainstream. But like I think if it ended negatively, for Wesley and Buttercup, it wouldn't be as not, I don't want to say like milk toast or vanilla, but just like comforting.
No, but you're
comfort
right.
food. It's mashed potatoes, it's pizza. It's comfort food. Not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but it's also not trash. It's
enjoyable.
Yeah,
it's pleasant. It's
stuff.
Weird because it's like, I can't remember exactly when this movie came out, but it came out during a time that seemed like much more like peaceful as far as like the kind of media we were getting. Nowadays it's like doom and gloom and like you said, Game of Thrones, where everybody dies and
when did it come out? When did this movie come out? Didn't somebody say it earlier?
87.
87.
So Reaganomics. Yeah, so that's why it feels so good.
Yeah. When the GDP was down here and wages, no, we're not going to get into politics. Yeah. Kevin, what are your overall thoughts on the film?
Let's see. I think it's got a little bit of everything, and kind of how the grandfather, like, specifically was like, "Are you kidding?" It's got swashbuckling action, romance, and I love how he's like, trying to sell the kid on it, and like throughout the movie, I can relate to the kid as far as like, I remember like, having a relationship with my great uncle, who like I didn't know quite as well, and it kind of took him like engaging me and like playing some games with me to really like sell me on him. And so like sometimes like when we're young and unsure of like relatives that we may not know quite as well, it takes a bonding moment like a game or a story or something to really like sell you on that person. And so like not only is the grandfather selling the kid on the story, but I think it's selling that a relationship with your grandfather is really important,
Mm-hmm.
and
just
it's
family in general kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And it's like, and so I was actually so prior to doing this review, like I've seen it a bunch of times and stuff, but I actually watched the movie twice because I felt like I felt like there's so many elements in it that I wanted to like truly analyze and like rewatch to like be sure of this. But what I also did my research on is that actually they intended for it to be a satirical romance. Like that's why there's all that cheesy humor in there and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so I love it. Like the humor may not like connect with everybody, and honestly, as a kid, like that whole rhyming sequence, like no more rhymes. I mean it. Like honestly, as a kid, the rhymes were so bad that I didn't even realize that they were rhyming. Like that's how bad it was.
It still kind of catches me off guard sometimes.
like they rhyme they rhyme hard with charm, and I didn't realize that they were trying. That's what they were doing.
Yes. And like like I mean it, a peanut is like it's like a near rhyme. So like but ultimately it's like it's not the story you expect, but ultimately by the end it's the story we all kind of want.
Most definitely.
So it's, and withholding that the fantasy novel vibe that I know so many of us love.
I definitely got to go back and read this book at some point just to get like the books taken. There's like a lot of like, not this is a satirical comedy like you just said, but I'm talking about like I need to go back and read like the original like Three Musketeers and the original Hunchback and stuff like that, because those books too are like it's always crazy to compare to the different iterations that they've come up with on film.
Disney has completely watered down all of those topics.
Except for the only one I'll argue is the Hunchback, because that starts with Frollo dangling a deformed baby over a well trying to kill itself. That one that was
Right.
That was my favorite.
But you know,
Yet another one I can't wait to talk about. But enough about
This is
me.
an unholy demon. I'm going to send it back to hell.
Daniel, what are your thoughts on this movie?
You see, so I thought that so even though when they were first making the movie, they were kind of making it as a joke. I still think that it performed incredibly well. Like, it manages. I don't know. There's kind of like this sweet spot that you got to hit with the audience, and they hit it. Like, and it's become a very memorable classic as a result.
What was it Chamber of Secrets? We were talking about how like it didn't work for some of us because they like ramped up the comedy severely, and it just didn't land a lot of it. And this movie could have very easily been in that kind of category of just like, oh god, like just cringe level comedy.
It's like, but they stuck the landing. Like, and even though they were aiming for something way over here, they managed to hit an even better spot. It's like aiming for the stars and landing on the moon.
Yeah, no, you're not kidding. Lots of precise calculations. Austin, I'm going to look up what other movies Rob Reiner has done, and you go ahead and tell us what you thought of the movie.
a whole lot.
Sure. Just let me get my laundry list of good things to say about this movie out real quick. No, in all seriousness, I think this is one of those rare examples where just they really did capture lightning in a bottle. More so to the extent, I think that even, just referencing Harry Potter real quick, Christopher Columbus did with the Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just think this cast is so perfect. It's not to the extent where like you see these actors, 30 years down the line and like, oh, you definitely played Wesley in The Princess Bride, even though I know they're recognized in public as that. It's just everything works so well in this movie, at least for me. Like I said, referencing back to Adam West Batman, like I love satirical humor. I love campy acting, and I love movies and film that are just self-aware. They know exactly what they are. And what we get when we watch The Princess Bride is satirical humor. I guess it's a satire on like, movies like Mask of Zorro maybe, or, old the Disney princess movies like Cinderella.
Those Errol Flynn-esque, fantasy movies or sword fighting.
Right.
Movies. Yeah.
Right. It's just a play on all of those movies, which we grew up, at least I grew up with. I don't know if you guys did as well. And this is the one where it's kind of like, it's the same movies that we know, but it's kind of catered more towards adults, but not in a crude humor or maybe a violent way. It's just,
Well, like Daniel was saying, it kind of threads that needle. It kind of sits right on that line of like for kids, for adults, and it really does have a ton of like good dialogue for adults to kind of sit there and be like, oh, that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out from this movie the most is just the clever writing. I mean, this movie front to back is quotable. We're trying not to quote it here right now, even.
Inconceivable.
So you go on YouTube and like look up like quotable scenes from The Princess Bride, and it's like a third of the movie. It's just in that video itself.
That's awesome. So I agree with everybody's points, to be honest. I mean, this is just a very thoroughly enjoyable film, and I mean, it's nice that you can watch most of it with your kids, although I was surprised to see that the final fight between Inigo and Ruger was like a lot bloodier than I remember. But other than that part, like, the Pit of Despair is not too bad. It's just like soda bottles like taped together on string. But I liked it really, and it's kind of like Superman 78 for me, where like I also didn't really see it in one sitting for quite a while, so I don't have the same like nostalgia for it that some people do. But I still I'll put it on. It's enjoyable, like maybe once every year or so. I don't know. So next question, we're going to start with Kevin first. And what is your opinion? This is perfect for you, I think, because you already touched on it. What is your opinion on how the story is told, like the way the grandfather reads it to his grandson, intercut with scenes from the book he's reading? I thought it was a pretty clever device to kind of keep you invested, because it's kind of like we are the kid. Like the kid is almost our avatar in this, where we're just like listening to what's happening. What do you say?
No, I definitely agree. I also like like there's like these kind of funny anecdotes like between them, and one in particular, like when she's about to get like eaten by the freaking like eel, like the shrieking eel, like, and he's just like
shrieking eels.
yeah. And
It's the name of my hockey team.
yes, and he's like she doesn't get eaten, by the way, and the kid's just kind of like, what? He's like, well, you look concerned, so I just wanted to make sure that you knew that she didn't get eaten. And it's just like adds a whole other humor element, and also when like after the dream sequence where the lady's just like boo,
It's like being in Philadelphia. Boo! Boo this man!
yes, that is like real Philly vibe. No, and then the kid's just like, he's like, see, I told you he wouldn't marry that old humperdink, whatever. And he's like, and the grandfather's like, yes, you're very smart. Now shut up.
Now shut up.
So I thought it was very, very effective, and just like added another element that like it's a story, and it's being told. And we're being told it, and also this kid is being told it. So yes, it is like the kid is our avatar,
Yeah, Daniel, I was thinking about a little bit earlier when somebody had brought. I think when Kevin brought it up earlier, made me think like nobody can or let me flip this way. Everybody has been in a situation where a family member that maybe you did know or didn't know or maybe only kind of liked, like Fred Savage only kind of likes his grandfather in this because he pinches his cheek and shit. Everybody can relate to like having to sit with somebody who's like at first they're not so comfortable with, but then like by sitting with them they kind of like appreciate them more, and the story was really the catalyst for that happening between them two. But did it work for you? Was it too distracting? What's a
No, I absolutely loved it. Like I love I always like it when there's like there's a narration going on, as long as it's not like overly imposing. But yeah, those like little funny moments, that just punctuate the story. Okay, the story's punctuated by a lot of funny moments, but the ones where it snaps back to reality, and then the grandfather is like, oh yeah, it's like oh yeah, this is happening or that's happening. Like I think my favorite one is when they stop for a little bit, and then the grandfather, and then they have to restart again. They're like, grandfather's like, where were we? Oh yes, the pit of despair.
The pit of despair.
Oh man, I've been seeing that meme a lot on my timeline.
Well, 2020 was legitimately the pit of despair, and we're only just almost climbed out of it. Almost.
Well, you want to know what's funny about
life
that?
Will hear you.
What's funny about that is in the book, it's the zoo of death or something like that.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
it's 5 layers. So maybe we've gone through just the first layer.
Oh no, that sounds much more imposing. The zoo of death. Oh my god.
Something like that. It's zoos or whatever, and it's like yeah, it's a whole thing.
Austin, how did this mechanic work for you between the grandfather and Fred Savage?
It's great.
Young Fred
It's
Savage.
great. Yeah, it's just a callback to like our younger days when like I don't know if this happened for you guys, but like my mom would always read me books like right before bed. Harry Potter was always a big one again because I'm just growing up around that time when they were all coming out. And it reminds me of also just like when being a kid, like all I wanted to do was like play sick and play video games. I think he's playing like an Atari 2600 in this or whatever.
The
Just to date this movie a little bit. And it's just like all I want to do is this, and then it's just like, no, we're gonna do this instead. It's just like, fine, I don't really want to do this, but it's like it doesn't need to be there, but it is, and while it's there, it's great. Because just you see Fred Savage's character where he's just like, oh God, Grandpa's going to read me a story. Then by the end of it, he's so invested, and we as viewers are as well. And he's not really conveying like what emotions like we're feeling or anything. It's just fun to watch him get so invested by the end.
Yeah. No, I think the only other movie that's maybe done it sort of kind of like this, but not even in the same way, was like The Page Master. But that was the only other movie I can really think of that was kind of like even close to this and did it as well as it did. Because some movies just rely on like exposition or something, but the fact that it was a fantasy novel that the grandfather's reading, and not just like, talking about his childhood, like in Big Fish or something. It was like much more interesting. At least to me.
I would love to see like a dubbed, like if it's like a YouTube version or whatever, of just like the entire movie done in like Peter Falk's voice. I think that would just be
say that they did the voices
so
too.
entertaining.
Well, Ryan, what do you say about this relationship and how they use it, kind of intercut the story? What are your opinions on it?
So I think I'm probably going to be the outlier on this one. I honestly, as much as I do like the relationship and how it evolves, it's also kind of unnecessary. Like, you can just do the story of Buttercup and Wesley without having, the grandfather and the grandson, or in the book the father and the son telling the story. It works on its own, but I do like that extra layer because it's a secondary story, if you will. Where they start off, at the beginning, the grandson's like, why are you reading me this, this dumb girly story with kissing and stuff? No, it's got swords and monsters, even though it's like, they're not really monsters. It's just like a large rat and an eel.
I'm literally the grandfather explaining anything that I like. It's got swords and monsters.
Yeah. And then what is just an old man or a troll? So, so to answer the thing, I like it. I don't think it's necessary, but I love that it's there, because it's something that the audience can, grab onto as well, because everyone, like you said, like y'all said, y'all can relate to that kind of relationship. And then at the end, I kind of already touched on it. It's like they start off a little bit antagonistic, even though it's not really, like an antagonism or anything. It's just the kid's being a little shit in the beginning, and then
he's being all of us.
He loves Grandpa. He tells Grandpa he wants him to hang out tomorrow. So it's mission accomplished. But it's I don't want to call it fat or dressing or anything like that, but it's auxiliary.
For sure. In the book, does this kind of mechanic still exist? You said it's a father and a son?
I believe so. I like I said, I haven't read it. I've only seen like a couple videos like on YouTube where they do what's the difference between the book and the movie and whatnot. And I watched that before I watched it for this review. And there are some different, like some drastic differences, but not like super that it changes the majority of the story. But there's some things that are different than the iconic Princess Bride movie.
It'd be interesting to like question for Rob Reiner whether he felt compelled to keep that dynamic of it, or if he just wanted to do like an actual like the book in the book kind of thing adaptation. That would have been
well.
Cool
I think
too.
that because it is what it is, that it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary to have that, because it's not Princess Bride without it. Even though I just went on a whole thing about how it's not necessary, it's totally necessary for it to be Princess Bride. But if it were to be anything else, it doesn't need it.
For sure, yeah. And I think we got to everybody on that, right? I think Kevin started that one off, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which means it's Daniel's turn. So Daniel, what did you make of we kind of started this a little bit, but what did you make of the use of comedy elements mixed with the overall epic fantasy genre? And I'm guessing it worked for you.
Oh yeah. So I've said previously in past episodes that I really like comedy. I also like fantasy and action too, with a bunch of comedy in between them. And this movie, like, I can just sit there just like grinning like a child the entire time. Like, even as a 30-year-old man, I just sit there like the entire time. Like just watching it. And
you're the Michael Scott meme. Where's
oh man, no, this I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautifully done, and it was supposed to be a comedy. With just little elements of like fantasy and action. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about you put it really well about how it threads the needle. Like it gets the perfect like ratio of that.
Yeah, it's a very big balancing act. But if you could pick like one scene or one like jokey kind of thing about it that like really was like your favorite, is it Inconceivable?
One, okay, Inconceivable is really great. Oh, I don't know, the entirety of the sword fight.
Oh,
Like,
I love the sword fight. It's the best sword fight. Oh, my God.
especially
Yeah,
when he's like
agreed.
climbing
So
up the
good.
rope, and
I'm
it's
not
like,
left-handed.
you see, it's like, you seem a good person. I hate to kill you. You seem a good person. I hate to die.
I'd
like-
sooner break a stained glass window than kill you. I love it too because like they're just like sitting there talking about like different philosophies of sword fight. He's like, oh, so I'm gonna counter you with capybara or something.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
it's so good.
My
Austin,
manta style beats your crane style. Well, my crane style will beat your tiger style. My tiger style will beat
Drunken
your bear
Fist,
style. Yeah.
Bow Ride Show.
So, the joke's on you. I'm not left-handed.
I'm not left-handed. Austin,
Though Wesley
same
had the
question.
fist of the North Star.
Same question to you, man. What
Yep.
you know, the comedy aspect of all this. I mean, I think I can almost speak for us that it probably worked for you too.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm not a fan of comedy that is forced. I
Right.
referenced it before where it's like you get these like shows on Nickelodeon nowadays where like the laugh track is just way overdone. You know, like someone does a line where it's just like, okay, now you're supposed to laugh because like someone pushed a button and had a laugh track behind it. But the reason I think this comedy in this movie works so well is because it's not like the lines are not necessarily funny, but they're satirical and they're witty, and like at times they're like overly optimistic, and that's what I really appreciate about the comedy in here. Where again, my favorite quote, I know I'm answering another question already, um, was where he's like, oh, I know I wrote it down, but now I don't remember. And it's like where it's right before the fire swamp, where they just fell down the hill and like Wesley revealed himself, and Buttercup is like, we'll never survive, and Wesley's like, nonsense, you only say that because no one ever has. It's like I always get a good laugh out of that line because like it's not funny, but I think when you're just like given the build up to that bit and understanding that, you know, this is a satirical comedy, it's just like it just makes me laugh every time.
You did your Uncle Vernon voice. Ryan, what about you, man? Did the comedy work for you? Did it land properly, or?
Oh yeah, of course. And like, what's funny is that growing up, like I didn't find it funny, you know. But I only get it now that I'm older and whatnot. You know, my child lizard brain finally grew up or whatever. But like almost everything that Andre the Giant says is gold, and basically all of Billy Crystal's dialogue is in that IMDb trivia quotes or whatever. It absolutely worked. It's hysterical. Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
It so holds up.
Yeah, I think of like almost every like 2 seconds in the movie there's another funny line to talk about. But Kevin, what about you, man? Oh, that's what I want to talk about. These actors, like they're like Andre the Giant wasn't really an actor. You have some heavy hitters like your
I mean, you can tell.
oh yeah, but it's still like somehow they got like all these great like character out of these actors, like, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kevin? Sorry, not to cut you off.
No, I keep interrupting. I apologize.
What the hell?
That's what we do around here. I mean,
Yeah, we're like, wait.
It's inconceivable.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the humor is just, it's so god awfully cheesy, but I feel like that's the whole point. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what it makes me laugh and chuckle. And it's like, you know, like just like I love, and Austin, I'm so glad that you brought up like Adam West Batman. Like one of the funniest things about like that movie to me, like, is just like the really obvious things like drop bat ladder away, and he like drops it literally at the bottom. There's a little sign that literally says bat ladder. It just makes me laugh so much. Yeah. So like just things like the name, like I already mentioned the rhyme scene. Kind of like I had to rewatch to like get the rhymes because they were so bad. But like just the like just Wallace Wallace Shawn just being like just sitting there like well, now the cliffs of insanity, like just like what. And
you're not gonna get paid.
Yes, that scene, but oh yeah, that whole monologue to Andre the Giant on the boat before they leave is hilarious. It's just like, where were you? Unemployed back in
in Greenland.
Yes. Also, there's one little sequence that's also really funny is that like when they're all on the boat and they're sailing along, and Indigo's like keeps looking back over his shoulder. He's like, "Why are you doing that?" He's like, "You sure nobody's following us, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm sure. It would be inconceivable for anybody to follow us." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Coincidentally, why do you ask?" "Oh, because I see a ship behind us." Like he's like, "What? Inconceivable?" Like,
I do not think you know what that means.
Yes, I love that part too. And it's just
he gives
also
a master class monologue when he's sitting there doing the like duel of wits. Oh my god, that is so funny.
That scene is so incredible. I love it. But just like I love like the obvious names of things like the Cliffs of Insanity, the Pit of Despair. I mean the Fire Swamp, and the ROUSs. Like it's like I love like. There's one time when I was a kid where my cousin and I are in the car and we look out the window, we see these big white flowers, and my grandfather is in the front seat. We ask him, we're like, "Grandpa, what are those big white flowers over there?" And he's like, "Well, they're called BWFs." And we're like, "Well, what are those?" It's like big white flowers. It's like really stupid humor that I just love. It's like
it's a BFG. Like it's the BFG.
Yes, it's like ROUSs. It's just so funny to me. Like because that whole sequence is like, I don't believe in them.
And Robin Wright literally like sits there just dead ass like, what about the ROUS? Is like completely concerned. It's like to be able to say that line with all seriousness is a tremendous feat.
Oh my gosh, yes. And one sequence that's like it's not meant to be funny, but always gave me a chuckle was when she's sitting there calling Humperdinck a coward and everything, and he's just like very calmly like, "I would not say such things if I were you." And she like really like hammers on that he's a coward, and he just stands up and like in a menacing way like grabs her arm and just, "I would not say such things if I were you." Like it's supposed to be some sort of like it's supposed to be serious, but I always just find it funny. I don't know why, but
it's almost like
the
purposeful.
humor works so well.
It's almost like purposeful, like crappily written dialogue, but like knowing full well like meta bad kind of dialogue.
Right. What's really nice is that like everyone's interpretation of the comedy that we're all seeing at the same time is so much different. Where like I wouldn't think that's funny personally. Like that to me is like more of a serious moment. But like that's why I like things that are so self-aware of what they're doing and what they're saying, to where it's like it doesn't have to be funny, but to some people it just is.
It's kind of like British comedy, but done by all American actors for the most part, and it's just a totally different vibe. Like other than I think Carrie Elwes, I think all of them are American.
No, Humperdinck is. But also one other thing, specifically, relevant to these times is, people in masks cannot be trusted, and also
they're
super comfortable.
I was like, how poignant.
He's like, yes, but also when he's like, exactly when he's like, "Oh, I believe everybody will be wearing them someday." It's like,
man, he hits that one.
Style icon. I'm just gonna say, Dread Pirate Roberts, Carrie Elwes, Wesley style icon.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And it's funny because at first you're like, "Oh my god, who is this guy?" When he's like up there fighting, then they show that he's Wesley, and you're like, "Oh." And it kind of like lightens him up a bit for like about 10 to 15 minutes. You're like, "Dude, this guy's badass!" Like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's your badass goth boyfriend. Like even when they enter the fire swamp, he's like, I like it here. Might get a house here. And then a Buttercup just looks at him. That whole part where he's just like,
but the trees are very nice.
Yeah, I think the trees are very nice. And she just gives him this look. I can't tell if it's Buttercup or if it's Robin Wright looking at him, but it's just like it's totally out of character. It's just this look. It's just like, are you serious?
I would love to know how much of the dialogue was like ad-libbed and some of the reactions and stuff. Like, what amount of information did they get, or did they practice these lines? Like, I'm sure to some extent.
I don't know. It's Rob Reiner. He might be a stickler for dialogue, so he might not.
Somebody was talking about Billy
Miracle
Crystal.
Max, didn't practice his. Actually, during that scene, in there, like that scene held up production by an entire day because Wesley, I don't remember the actors, unfortunately. Wesley couldn't stop laughing whenever Miracle Max was talking, and it held up production the entire day.
Billy Crystal is so funny, man. And then like when his wife comes in, it's like, you selfish bastard.
There's another scene just like that where I got to give credit to Robin Wright when Wallace Shawn is doing his monologue with the iocane powder, with the Battle of Wits, where like she's just sitting there blindfolded, and I'm like, how are you keeping a straight face right now?
It's a good thing she can't see Wallace Shawn's face, because like I know he's chewing the scenery and hamming it up so hard, but his face the entire time looks like.
Can we get some sort of like Step Brothers 2, but instead this time it's Wallace Shawn and Danny DeVito? Like that would be so fucking fun.
I'm sorry.
I would love for that.
There's two I forgot. I love the whole "you fall employed of one of the classic wonders." Like that cracks me up.
The meme.
And also the one that's got to be one of the most humorous moments. I don't know how anybody can keep a straight face. Is the whole Peter Cook marriage is
marriage
and love
is what brings us together.
It's like, what is happening?
What's really funny about that scene is that like while that's going on, because that's like an iconic scene too, like people quote that marriage all the time. But like while that's going on, that iconic comedy scene, like the most death metal thing is happening out in the courtyard with Andre the Giant in a big Holocaust cloak, by the way. So I don't know how that term's aging, but this big cloak, and then they just light him on fire. It's so death metal.
I am the dread pirate Baba.
Yeah. I actually I wanted to bring up that scene because I think the character's name is Yellen, like the captain of the guard or whatever. And they're like, Wesley's like, Fezzik, rip off his arms. And he's like, oh, you mean this gatekeep?
Also, I think Cary Elwes should have deserved an Oscar for his performance during the time after the Pit of Despair where he cranked it to 50. And so he's like slowly regaining his body back, but he's like,
Boneless Roberts, Boneless Wesley.
It was post Lockhart.
I was gonna say Lockhart definitely like got all the bones out of his arm.
Akiam,
There's no bones left.
There's two little parts in this movie, and I'm just gonna say this piece, and then we'll move on to the next question. But when they go to the Cliffs of Insanity, I thought it was a little convenient how they dock and start climbing, and the boat's still there, and then they pan away, they pan back, and the boat's just gone, and Dread Pirate Roberts is starting to dock. I thought that was like, maybe that was lazy, maybe that was kind of meta again, trying to be overly a little B movie in this. The other one was after Buttercup gets pulled out of the lightning sand, and the two ROUSs are up there kind of like looking at him. And I thought he was angled so he could see both of them, because he takes like a pause and he looks at him, he's just like, and then he's like, oh no, I don't even think they exist, and one attacks.
Well, no. What he was doing, he specifically saw them. No, what he was trying to, calm her fears.
Oh wow.
That's what he was doing.
He was playing 4D chess. I'm over here just laughing my ass off. And again, like, the Rogar Inigo scene was brutal, but like him killing the ROUSS, like he burns it on one of the fire.
Yeah. I think it was a little petty, the little pokes at the end.
Yes.
But also Buttercup didn't do a damn thing that entire
Not a
time.
thing.
No.
Not a thing.
She knows her geography very well. She knew exactly where they were. Well, wait, the slope. We're down into the pit of where the fire swamp.
She even picks up a stick and she doesn't do anything with it. like it bites onto her dress or whatever, and she like, I don't know, maybe pokes at it or whatever, but she's just
Right.
holding on to it. And then it's not until it finally like has her down that she finally takes a whack at it. And oh man, just talk about
getting bit up.
It's pre-Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
There's more effort into that poke with the stick than like Wesley's entire like stab at me.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Talk about
Austin, what is your favorite performance in this film? If you could pick one person, let's try to keep it to one, everybody, because we could go on for days. But
oh my God,
for you, what's like the one person?
Mandy Patinkin. But I've got to go with Inigo. You know, I love a good revenge plot, and I really do. And like I think he's the character at the end of the day that I'm really rooting for. Because he's dedicated his whole life to, you know, the study of fencing. And he's like, all I want is revenge for my father. I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
Yes.
And I just think, he's in such desperation towards the tail end where he's just chasing Count Rugen through the castle. And again, self-aware humor. I love that he's like holding the blade up to his stomach like it's pierced him. And he's just... it's so over dramatic. I love it.
He really sells it. Like you care. He's like a very lovable idiot because he loses the battle to Dreadfire Roberts. He's supposed to be like this crazy good sword. Loses to Dreadfire Roberts, then loses to Rogar pretty much, and then goes Super Saiyan and somehow heals his wounds. I guess he got stabbed in the shoulder, in the arm, and in the chest. I was like, really, bro? You're still going?
Well,
right. He's so confident, and like he's so angry and he's so desperate all at the same time. It's just like you're the most dynamic
adrenaline
character.
Shot. Yeah,
he's the most dynamic character out of all of them, in my opinion.
I just want to say that he does have the shonen protagonist, you know, origin story. You know,
yes, he does.
His
You're
father
absolutely right.
was killed, so he uses by a man, by a dark man or whatever, and then, you know, he spends his whole life training to gain revenge using his own father's sword, and finally has him, and you know, he's
the end.
He's anime.
Right before he kills Rogar, and he's like, "Will you give me everything? Beg for your life." Like he like legit like milks it for a second. He goes, "I want my father back, you son of a bitch," and he kills him. It's like, oh my God. But anyways, that's a great pick. Ryan, what's your favorite performance?
So it's hard because it's either Andre or Billy Crystal. And I'm gonna choose Billy Crystal. But I want to give an honorable mention to Andre because he's not an actor. You know, although wrestling does have acting as a part of it. It's performance sport. It's like sportainment or something like that. It's
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But Billy Crystal, just, you know, Miracle Max, like it's just a scene stealer. Like I understand why that scene took so long. Yeah, you know, because just like Carrie Elways, I'm dying. You know, he's hysterical. He reminds me of my grandparents who were heavily Jewish, and just everything about him, you know, he's great. Billy Crystal and everything. I just love him.
Yeah, no, I think this rewatch he jump up several spots, I think, on my list. I think both him and Inigo might be one of like the top two. I don't really know anybody who could probably beat out those two. But Kevin, what's your top performance? Who brought it?
I think Carrie Elways like brought it completely, like all around. Like in the beginning, you're seeing him as just this farm boy, this like very docile kind of submissive kind of guy, just always as you wish. And like I think his eyes say it all. Like you can see so much emotion from his eyes. Oh, he's so attractive. And
he got fat by Saw though, didn't he? He got kind of big.
He's still handsome. He's still real world handsome.
That's the
fair
thing.
point.
He's very, you know, he's dynamic, he's charming and everything. And like when you see him, you know, there's something to be said for, you know, playing two roles in one. when
yeah.
you're seeing him as the Man in Black, there's like some mystique there, but yet you can tell he's also a gentleman in his like dealings with Inigo and everything, and like there's that confident energy of knowing how to fence so well against Inigo, who is without doubt like one of the greatest swordsmen ever alive, and he brings that. And then I think where he really shines to me is that whole sequence where he has Buttercup, before they fall down and everything, and he's really laying it on hard. It's like, oh, he spoke of his devotion, like is your complete faithfulness. And what did you do? Did you leave like within a month, to get engaged, whatever? And she's like, I died that day, whatever. And he's like, and he like raises his hand to like backhand her, and he's like, that's a warning, princess. Next time my hand flies on its own. It's just like, it's so well done. But then he's so romantic and heroic, and just even when he is in the pit of despair and coming back from that, when like he's still so quick-witted and sharp, he's the ultimate hero you could possibly want. He's funny. He's all of it.
I think you brought up a great scene that when he's just laying into Buttercup, like he's almost testing her in some ways, but he does like bring forth a lot of emotion. Like, why did you just agree to marry this dude? Like, not even that long after I disappeared. Like, what the hell, woman? And like, other than the tower, like the arcade tower he goes through, like Inigo, Fezzik and Vicini, I thought that was probably one of his. And then again, I guess like the Leonardo DiCaprio and Wolf of Wall Street, like just kind of like totally amorphous blob there before they go to the castle. Would you consider him the protagonist of this movie, everybody? I kind of
100%.
I was trying to think about that. I was like, who else could be?
Oh, Fezzik. It's Fezzik's story. The whole story is about Fezzik. I mean, he's
get a Fezzik prequel.
Yeah. It's about him. I don't know why you guys didn't see it.
What the hell?
The way I always see it is that, like, most of the characters who at least have speaking roles or predominant speaking roles, like, all seem to have an arc in this movie. So it could really go to anyone. Me, I've always thought it's either Wesley or Inigo.
Yeah, you're right, because Inigo gets like a full-blown like 3-arc story and everything. Like it, and they didn't even have to do flashbacks and stuff to get his thing across. But anyways, Daniel, your favorite performance? What was the favorite? Who do you think brought it?
So I'm gonna say Wesley, and that and so all of the stuff that Wesley's actor did was great, but the one that really got me, honestly, was the part where he has the count, so they're up top, and not the count, but the who's the bad guy again?
Rogar?
Humperdinck?
There's Humperdinck and Rugen.
Rugen.
Humperdinck, the guy who's gonna marry Buttercup.
Yeah, Humperdinck.
Humperdinck.
Which is why I thought it was
I'm
Mel
terrible
Brooks
with
movie,
names.
because his name
I
is
love this movie. I'm
Humperdinck.
terrible with names. So very end of the movie, they're up in the tower, and Humperdinck is going to try and fight Wesley, and then Wesley, who barely has the strength to stand, challenges Humperdinck, to a match, not to the death, to the pain. And as he's going over each of these things to the pain, like what that means, like I feel the room grow colder and colder. Just like that scene just gives me chills watching it.
Well, it's kind of the Battle of the Wits part, like they literally, I don't think Vizzini would have fell for that, but Humperdinck is a pussy, so he totally is like, I don't know if he can get up.
And then Humperdinck just like sits right down. Yes, sorry.
It's like Viggo Mortensen in Green Book with the pistol behind him, and the bartender points the shotgun. He's like, I'm telling you, I've got a pistol back here. And he's like, I don't know if you do. He's like, I've got a fucking pistol back here. But anyways, so that's...
Drop your sword.
Yeah, so that scene out of all of them is why I say Wesley.
Yeah, I tend to agree with those 3 picks, I think. 4 if we talk about Andre the Giant. I agree. We haven't talked really about his battle with Dread Pirate Roberts much. Like that was a very entertaining one, and just the fact that
anytime he's
very
on
supporting.
screen, he's a joy.
he's so
a joy.
he's so like charming, and just like he throws the rock as a warning shot, and he even says as much. Like, I didn't want to hit you. I tried to get your attention. Let's fight as God intended without swords or rocks. And of course, Dread Pirate Roberts is like, well, you're kind of big, bro. You're gonna kill me if I do that. And he's like, well, I can throw this boulder at your head and just do it right now. And he's like, all right,
Like, it's not my fault I'm big.
I think that's what
The
probably
biggest and the strongest.
Yeah.
that's between, like, Inigo's incredible story and fighting skills and just being very kind and helping him up the end of the cliffs of despair. Like, between that and then Fezzik being just a very honorable warrior in that moment, I think those are the reasons he lets them live. And then he goes to the third one, and Rizzini, he just wants to kill him. He's just like, he tries every switch and long talk and distraction he can, and then he still loses. So, I don't know.
Vizzini's the only one that's antagonistic towards him. Inigo and what Fezzik says when he's like when Vizzini's like, do what you do, or like, do your job, or whatever, what your thing. And he's like, what is my thing? He's like, hide behind a large rock and then throw a rock at him. When you see his head, kill him with a rock. He's like, that's not very sportsmanlike. My thing's not very sportsmanlike. And, that's why he throws the thing. But also, that's the same thing with Inigo, too. He's also a sportsman. He helps Wesley up the cliff, and then he allows him to rest. And he even lets him examine his weapon. He lets him hold his own weapon. So, the weapon that his father made. So, like, they're both sportsmen and they're both kind, and that's the reason why Vizzini's the only one that dies.
It's funny how, like,
victim of his own hubris.
Inigo was a drunk, and Fezzik was just unemployed, so that's why they're with Vizzini. They're not with him because they like him or because they want to be friends. They just need money, for their own purposes.
Yeah, they're mercenaries.
Yeah,
they're mercenaries, but they're still like the three, like the.
I know, to your point earlier though, about being like anime, like I think of like Goku as the prime example of taking bad guys who he fights at first and turning them into friends, and I love that. And you get like kind of the double dose, because you get the fact that Inigo and Fezzik come back and are his friends, but you also get the switch of Humperdinck being kind of just like he's there, he's trying to save Buttercup, quote unquote, but then he's like obviously the bad guy. So you get kind of that double bait and switch that I really enjoy that when it's done well, and I think it was done all right in this. Coming back to Ryan now, we're going to go to, what was your favorite sequence or set piece in the film?
So my favorite sequence is probably the sword fight between Inigo and Wesley. But my favorite set piece, I would probably have to say like I want to say like the fire swamp, because like just from its execution, like the way that just it's made, like
very well choreographed.
I was thinking about like, how did they set up the sand pit, for that whole sequence where they get sucked into the into the sand. Like, is that a like a chamber underneath the floor? Is it like hollow underneath there, and they're just falling through? Like, how do they come back up? Like, I wonder, like, how shooting that whole thing went down. And it's also the most like fantastical. That's where we we meet the ROUSs. We got
it's all like
fire shooting up from the ground,
practical effects too, so it's even like more kind of like, whoa, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so probably the sword, the iconic sword fight, and the Swamp of Fire.
Definitely, man, that's a great pick. Kevin, what about you, man?
Let's see. I was also going to say the duel. But I'll say, so in the pit of despair, the machine, the torture device, whatever, like, it looked very crude and everything else, but I felt like it was very effective. And it all depended on the actor to sort of make it, it's like,
he literally cried in that scene, didn't he? Like when he lets out that moan. You kind of wait for a
Yeah.
laugh, but it doesn't ever come.
How are you feeling? And he's just like crying because he's in so much
Yeah,
pain.
he's literally like, which is like really pitiful, actually. And then you know,
Interesting.
when he finally,
Would you say
yes,
that he
when
was
he finally-
experiencing despair?
oh yes, very much so. I mean, he's like, and then when finally Humperdinck like comes in and like cranks it to 50, not to 50. Like, oh my god, like it was convincing to me, and I always like, I never like a torture scene in a movie, so I'm always like, even like I know it's not real, but it's also like.
Well, that scene was kind of comedic in the same way that like Young Frankenstein was kind of comedic. Like I can get with that kind of like quasi horror like drama aspect, but yeah.
Yes.
So that was the pit of oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the pit of despair definitely. But set pieces I liked. I actually like, this is a really random one, but the goblets that they used for the Battle of Wits, like those goblets are like really pretty looking. I thought that was really neat. And also, just if you just take a look at the costumes throughout the movie, like from front to back, I mean, they really fit the era and the time frame and everything, which I thought was really, really cool and well done. So I'll just say that.
Definitely, man. Daniel.
So I'm gonna kind of echo what everyone else has said about the duel, between Indigo and Wesley. That's probably my favorite scene. A good close second is actually the duel between Indigo and
Inigo. That's twice. I couldn't let it go twice.
Indigo.
I know. I keep wanting to call him Indigo or Indigo.
Indigo. I always get his
Indigo.
Alberto.
Yeah. Between him and
Ruben?
the Count, just six-fingered dude. That's the other best. That's the other best scene. Like the first scene is just funny, and it's just funny, has a little bit of action to it, and it just watching two swordsmen trying to kill each other, being complete gentlemen about it. Whereas the other sword fight, is very emotionally charged. Like there's no gentleman left in Inigo. By the time you get to that point, no, he's at this point, like he's on the path to revenge, and the emotional charge of that scene is very high. You see, as far as set pieces go, I want to say the part where they dress up Andre the Giant, and they have him going, and they're basically presenting him as an avatar of death to the castle guard.
And it only works because it's like the medieval, like, milieu atmosphere. They're like,
Yeah, metal. It's so metal.
Like that's probably like one of my favorite set pieces.
Like Amon Amarth is playing like subtly in the background.
He's playing Slayer while the whole thing's happening.
That's awesome. Any other thoughts about your favorite stuff, or?
That really encompassed. It really encompassed the favorite set piece and favorite sequence.
Sweet. Austin.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try and dodge this one. The sword fight is just, it's the best part. It's so entertaining. It's so well choreographed. It's so well done. Like other than like, I think Anakin versus Obi-Wan, like this is just my favorite sword fight like ever put to film ever. Yeah, it's what everyone else said. Like the sword fight's just great. My favorite set piece actually, I want to give a shout out to a quick scene real quick. We already touched on it, but just the pan into the wedding scene, and then you get up to the Archbishop or whoever it is that he's getting ready to, introduce the wedding, and it's just my wedge, and you're just like, what? It's like there's no way to see that coming at all. And like this movie is already ridiculous, but it's just like Mowich.
All these scenes are so good. Like I can't even pick one, to be quite honest. Like all the ones you guys brought up and a couple more, like the Boo scene, like the dream sequence, I thought was just so funny, like kind of terrifying, but very funny at the same time. Because like, why can't we do that more in society? Like if we just totally disagree with somebody, like, filth, slime, boo.
So to answer your second part, though, Daniel, I've got to go with your pick. Is just the entire scene in front of the portcullis, and he's like, "I'm the Dread Pirate Roberts," and just all these. I think there's like 60 men. They're all just like, "Oh shit!" So they all run away. And then, again, I said it earlier, but it's just like it'll always get me. Like, give us the gate key. I have no gate key. Tear his arms off. Oh, you mean this gate key?
Before we move on, I just want to say like two things. One thing that I just thought of as Austin was saying his thing is that all three of them, Wesley, Fezzik, and Inigo, all three of them are the Dread Pirate Roberts at one point or another.
Yeah, you're right.
Because Wesley's the Dread Pirate Roberts. Fezzik wears the big cloak and does his whole "I'm the Dread Pirate Roberts." And then at the very end, Wesley suggests that Inigo become the Dread Pirate Roberts. So, which I don't know if that actually happens or whatnot, but
I would be so down
it as
for
that he's going to pass it on to him, that it's going to happen.
I'd be so down for like a whatever. It's been 30 years later, and you have old Mandy Patinkin as Dread Pirate Roberts in like a sequel. Well, not even a sequel, just like another standalone, but like post. That would be so funny.
I believe there actually is a sequel, like a book written or something, but I don't think it's made it overseas or whatever. But the second thing is touching back on what Kevin said about was the Chamber of Despair.
Pit of Despair.
Pit of Despair, yeah, with the machine, and that he cranks it to 50. So it's Rob Reiner, and I'm not quite sure when Spinal Tap came out, but like, would it be funny that instead of the 50, it went to 11?
That would have been so funny. Yeah. What was the other thing I was? I'm surprised we haven't touched on. There's a quick little scene with they call him the albino, so I'm not just trying to be rude, but
that guy.
I love that guy.
And he's like, "What are you? What are you talking about?" Like,
I love that.
It's like, yes, that kind of humor plays with me perfectly.
Someone tell Ryan Johnson that's how you subvert expectations,
right? In the best possible way. Kevin, start us off with this question now. We talked about who you thought your favorite performance was. Who is your favorite character?
It's probably a toss-up between Inigo and Fezzik. It's like, I love them. But I gotta give an honorable mention to Buttercup. I feel like the way that she plays that role, she comes out as Humperdinck announces her, to the crowd and everything, but you can just tell, like, there's no love in her heart. Like the face that she makes and everything, and the pain that crosses her face when he's, really like hammering her on the cliff about like everything that she, everything that she said she was faithful, but, obviously she wasn't. But also in the very, very beginning, her whole, like, just playing the kind of bossy girl, I thought was really well done too. So honorable mention to her.
I would tend to agree. I think Robin Wright probably could have played it a lot whinier, for lack of better words, but that would have been, I wouldn't have appreciated that at all. I kind of like that she was a little more stone-faced, because you're right. She was not in love with him, and her heart was pretty much dead, was her thing. She was literally going to kill herself if she had to marry this guy, because she loved another. So yeah, that's a great pick. Daniel, what about you, man? Favorite character?
Favorite character, as much as I like Wesley, it's Inigo. Like, just like Wesley, don't get me wrong, Wesley had like a great, a great like story arc, but you see, like, but Wesley, he is very much like the same all throughout. Whereas Inigo, you can see how, I think I mentioned earlier how you see how he changes between like the first sword fight and the last sword fight. He doesn't like change as a person, but you can see like, just the range, one's, one's very, very reserved, very respectful, and then he gets to the very last part and he's all teeth. And
I'd probably have to agree with you. Like, I think Inigo is probably my favorite character as well, and probably because of the range more than anybody else. Like, he goes from like kind of this like, very capable, but kind of like slightly dim-witted mercenary. And then like Vizzini dies and he loses the fight and he just like all hope is gone, drunk again. And I forget what they call that area. It's like the Robbers Cove or something, but they go there to clear them all out and they're like, yeah, the Spaniards giving us trouble. And next thing you know, you just see him like just drunkenly like, fuck you guys, I don't give a shit. And then for him to kind of rebound once he hears about, Wesley and that he's in trouble. And then he's really the one from that point to take it and like, take responsibility. He revives Wesley and, they go from there. So yeah, I mean, to me, he's definitely the most interesting.
I love when they're planning there and it's like, how many can you take? He's like, at my best, probably about 10. And he's like, leaving 20 for me, which I would never be able to match. Like I love that whole plan sequence. It's so good.
He pauses, like it's a very methodical, like, and he thinks about it, like, could I kill 20 people right now? And then they go and then it's 60. So they're like, oh, fuck. What are assets? Yeah. Well, the albino had a wheelbarrow.
He's like, why didn't you list that among our list of assets?
Oh, good stuff. Austin, what about you? Favorite character?
It's Inigo. It has to be. I kind of just think he has the best character arc. He goes from, he wants revenge. Like he is the revenge arc of this movie. And like, he's on the point of almost giving up. There's that scene right before the sword fight where like it's been 20 years, like I'm kind of starting to lose confidence. And then he gives one of my favorite lines actually is just, I just work for Vizzini to pay the bills. There's not a lot of money in revenge.
he's a real one, no doubt.
I love that one. Yeah, I think he's just the most dynamic character. He goes from a real like respectable, like gentleman friendly, I guess opponent or rival to Wesley, and then he really does kind of bring everything home at the end where like his determination to obviously he can't get his father back because he's dead, but like to finally have that revenge on Count Rugen and to see him eventually come out of that battle victorious, it's just like, yes, like it's everything I wanted.
The best kind of fan service, because I think nobody in their rightful mind was like, no, I hope he dies at the end, but it was like he comes out of it kind of barely alive, but he wins, and it's just so satisfying. And for that to happen in like this kind of movie, you would think would be like a lot more kind of like, oh, of course he wins kind of thing. But just to see the levels of, mood and tone that he goes through to get to where he finally ends up, I think is just really fun to watch. I don't know. It never gets old, really. At least for me. Ryan, what about you, man? Favorite character?
So it's kind of, it's Fezzik. But I got to give a shout out to Wesley as the Dread Pirate Roberts. And like, just I would love a Dread Pirate Roberts story of how like those 5 years and like, it's like him as like Green Arrow on the island, like those 5 years that Oliver Queen spent on the island. I want to know the 5 years that he spent with the Dread Pirate and like training and whatnot, and how he came to be Zorro, but Fezzik, he's the Samwise Gamgee of the story. If it wasn't for Fezzik, there's no winning. Buttercup is married to a Humperdinck and she kills herself. So, it's got to be Fezzik. He's so sweet. He's a superhero. He's got super strength. He's metal as fuck. Like he's got, he's a scene stealer. And he's just amazing. I love him. He's the best. I wish I could resurrect Andre the Giant to be my golem, just so you can ride around.
He is the Brute Squad.
Yeah, you're the Brute Squad. Don't make me call the Brute Squad. I'm on the Brute Squad. You are the Brute Squad. That is my favorite. I die. That is my favorite line. It's, you are the Brute Squad.
Oh, man. That's so good. Yeah, he's just like drippy with charm in this movie, and for somebody to be like just so big and awkward, he really was kind of the precursor to somebody like The Rock, just being like, and The Rock is a lot more handsome and kind of comfortable, just his persona than Andre the Giant. But in this movie, his character and his dialogue and the way he delivers it. And he's very physical performance. I really enjoyed it as well. So yeah, good picks, everybody. We are going to go to, I believe Daniel starts this one, and the question is very easy. What is your favorite quote of the movie?
That's not an easy question.
I already answered that one.
You're on the clock.
No, there's a lot of them. Because yeah.
I'll give you mine first. Mine is by far the Shrieking Eels.
So honestly, out of all of them, I was thinking about this like when I first read the question. I think out of all of them, it's probably Inconceivable, only because I quote it so much. But there's also Storming
It's
the
the most
Castle
iconic
and-
line of the movie.
Oh yeah, and there's also Have Fun Storming the Castle, and and the parts like, you seem like a decent person. I hate to kill you. You seem like a decent person. I hate to die.
I felt that on like a human level.
Yeah.
But Inconceivable is probably the one I quote more than anything else, just because of the way he says it. Inconceivable.
Well, it's up there with like stuff like, I don't know, May the Force be with you, as in terms of like most iconic like film quotes of all time. But
It's
Austin,
the I'll be back of this movie. It's
oh yeah,
yeah.
another good one. Austin, what's your favorite quote, my friend?
Let me explain.
Ah,
No, there's too much time. Let me sum up.
Oh, was that the quote?
That was it.
I'm sorry, I
It
totally ruined that for you too.
Great line.
It was going to be, you seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die. But, this time around, it was definitely, let me explain. No, there's too much time. Let me sum up. And why, at least this time around, it was my favorite, just because, we could have gotten that like half-hour monologue of like plot exposition from Inigo, but like, no, we already know what happened. So let's sum up real quick.
Yeah.
Everything
So
that's
fun.
happened for the guy who's been out for like the past like hour or whatever. And
Well, it kind of goes to show that like he's trying so hard to like come across as intelligent, but he's not like super intelligent as a character. But that's like such a great scene because like you see the wheels turning in his head. He's like, let me explain.
he literally
No.
freezes for a second. No, let me sum up.
Great one. Ryan, what about you, man?
Well, I already said it, and it's You Are the Brute Squad. I'm gonna get that as a shirt. It's Billy Crystal, it's that shtick, it's that he's so quick and he's so witty, and his wit is so sharp and poignant. It's great, it's razor sharp. And I swear that reminds me of I forget which Fast and Furious movie it is, but it's the one where I think like The Rock and them like finally like kiss and make up and whatnot. And
Fast Five?
The Rock is like joining them at Dom's house or whatever. And was it Ludacris and Tyrese are like barbecuing something, whatever. The Rock shows up in his tight Under Armour shirt, and Tyrese is like, "Hey, hide the baby oil." And The Rock's like, "Hey, you better hide that big ass forehead." And then Ludacris just spits his drink everywhere. It's like, I wonder if it's one of those where it was like, I wonder if that was like a bit of improv, because The Rock improv that wasn't rehearsed or anything.
That's the best. Like the best dialogue is when actors can like improv, like just really well. That the best comedy dialogue is when they can just improv. So like Will Ferrell, like he's kind of annoying sometimes, but he's really good at that.
He's a masterclass at improv. It's just, just don't make him be Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of swings and misses in his career, no doubt.
Yeah, it's over. The fad's over.
And please God,
the only
no.
people that are allowed to do it are RDJ and Benny Cumberbatch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, oh my God. There's going to be one day we eventually get to Endgame and Infinity War, and I can't wait for that day. It's just going to be so much fun. Kevin, what's your favorite quote, man?
So my favorite quote is definitely "You've fallen for one of the classic wonders."
It actually sounded like him.
That one gets me every time. But also honorable mention. I love the whole "Good night, Wesley. I'll most likely kill you in the morning." That whole,
Oh yeah.
Talk about a great backstory. My goodness, just every time I think of like the next thing that he says about that, especially the I'll kill you in the morning. It's like for many people that might be terrifying when you think about it. I think of like somebody like Captain Barbosa being the former Dread Pirate Roberts and just being like, yeah, I'll kill you in the morning.
Do you think that that's his As You Wish?
Oh, yeah. I also
that's a good
one.
Is a good one.
Oh.
He secretly loved him the entire time.
What happens on the ship stays on the ship.
Someone
I can ship that relationship.
Literally. All right. So to wrap up, let's start with Austin. Go ahead and give us your final thoughts on the film. What did you like? What did you not like? Anything else you want to say about it?
What do you mean? What did I not like?
I just wanted to offer that up. Some people might not have liked it.
Tear Rob Reiner apart.
How dare you assume I have something bad to say?
Pile of stinking garbage.
Yeah, vomitous or whatever.
What does Austin Powers say about fat bastards fart when he does it in the sumo dojo? Hot, sick ass and a dead carcass. Anyways, best segue ever.
I think this time around, this rewatch really cemented this movie as my favorite movie. It's been kind of teetering between this and Happy Gilmore. I like early Adam Sandler movies. I do. Okay, come at me.
As do I.
So
Big Daddy.
Yeah, I can confidently say that it's like now Princess Bride, Happy Gilmore, and probably Back to the Future 1 now.
That's an eclectic top 3. My goodness. Sister Act 2 is a close fourth. Or
what's that?
Sister Act 2 is a close fourth.
Not quite. I love The Princess Bride so much. I'm so mad it took me 20 years of my life to finally see it. But before then, I didn't even really know what The Princess Bride was.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy now that as I've gotten older, I've gotten into films. I've gotten into thinking about them and viewing them critically, because I don't have anything bad to say about this movie. And I love praising things that I look at critically. So
yeah, we swung and missed at finding a film, like a standalone film that some of us would have diverse opinions about. We're all just like, oh yeah, and then this part.
But as I'm watching this film, it's just I understand it might not click with everyone. The humor might not be there. Maybe you want that physical comedy. Maybe you want that intense dramatic action, but you don't get that from this movie. And I think that's why it works so well, is because it's a satirical take on all those classic fairy tales that we know and love. And it just kind of nails all of those tropes perfectly. So
I wonder, you raise a really good question. I wonder what what's after us millennials? It's Gen Z.
Yeah.
I wonder what their generation would think of a film like this, because for me, a lot of these films, as good, let me put it this way, as better quality cameras and effects and things like that came out, I kind of started to drift away from these. But and I'll finish the question real quick. Okay, I wonder what they would think about something that is a little more dated like this, or even something like a Tim Burton's Batman, because it does look dated and stuff.
I kind of think, and I mean this sincerely, we kind of got that with Shrek. I know it's not quite the same, but it is
very Shrek-like.
Right. So I know
Shrek is
there's
most
obvious
things,
differences.
so that's neither here nor there.
But again, it's a satirical take on classic fairy tale stories, which is what The Princess Bride is. So I guess we kind of did. And I know Shrek was more successful than The Princess Bride was, at least as far as during its theater run. This has become more of a cult classic where Shrek became a phenomenon.
This is the office space of epic fantasy.
So to answer your question,
I
think we did get that with Shrek.
Yeah, no, I would be very curious, just force a Gen Zer to put their phone down and watch this movie and tell me what they honestly felt. They'd probably just be like, this fucking garbage, I hate it. But
then it's
do you like Shrek? And
just
as much as we do. I honestly, I think it's timeless. I think that as long as the medium of film is enjoyed by, you know, the youth, I think people are gonna watch it anyway. Because I mean, we weren't alive when this movie came out, or at least cognizant of these, you know, when this came out. So
Is it 87,
it's
right?
applicable to us as well.
87.
Yeah,
So
87,
I would have been
I'm 91.
-3 at that point.
I'm still a twinkle in my father's ball sack, you know. I think it's timeless, you know. If you showed a 15-year-old this movie, they, you know, if they're not into fantasy or movies or anything like that, you know, they're probably not gonna like it. But
I'm so glad they didn't reboot it, and I hope they never do. But
they don't need to, because sorry, just one last thing I wanted to say is just like there's nothing within the movie itself that really dates it. And I think that really works to its advantage. The only thing that really does date it, I guess, is like the very beginning where I said, like, I think Fred Savage is like playing an Atari or something. Like, but like other than that, like there's really nothing. There's no like technology. There's no like product placement. So like,
it's timeless, universal themes, like you guys are kind of touching on. Like anybody can watch this and on some level relate to it, because you know, we watch movies that are set in, you know, years and years ago. It's just they kind of look better. The practical effects are like the only thing that might be a little jarring, but otherwise. What about you, Ryan? What are your final thoughts on this bad boy?
Well, to touch on what you were saying about like things I didn't like about it, I think the main thing that I don't like about the Princess Bride is that I wish the titular Princess Bride had more agency to herself. Now we have more, you know, female protagonists, the characters that have more agency and are more stronger willed. You know, they're not Buttercup is just the archetypical damsel in distress. You know, I brought it up when we're talking about the fire swamp, that, you know, she was completely useless when they were being attacked by the rat of usual size.
She's basically a human MacGuffin in this whole movie. Like they fight together the whole time. Once they get her, it's like, yeah, who cares? It's
the whole movie is a giant escort mission. You know, like she's Wesley is Leon and she's Ashley. Like there's
man, great comparison.
That's a
squeeze in a Resident Evil reference,
right?
Yeah, like she's useless. You know, she's a prize that it needs to be, you know, brought back to safety, safe haven, you know. And it's only because, you know, we're in the time period where we are now, where, you know, we didn't usually have a lot of, you know, characters that were like that, you know, back then. Like I can name like Ellen Ripley as like being the biggest one of the time. Yeah, I just wish she wasn't such a damsel in distress. I wish she was a little more useful, because
I could totally agree with that. And I think you probably hit it on the head in so many words. Like by today's viewpoint, it's a very tired trope of the damsel in distress. Like it's just not interesting to me either, like at all anymore. But I think I give this a pass in the same way that I give something like The Searchers or like these old Clint Eastwood like westerns a pass, where they're like, you know, they're set and they take place and were written and were made in a time where that was still like kind of the norm and accepted. And while I don't advocate for it now, obviously, as I'm sure you don't, like it's, you know, we're just kind of sick and tired of it. It's like, what else does a woman in a movie have to offer than just being like the pretty face who scowls a lot, you know?
And I think, like, you know, to counter my own argument is that that's the point, is that she's supposed to be this damsel in distress. You know, she's, you know, supposed to be saved by the dashing rogue, you know, and
literally a white savior, some knight in shining armor, like take your cliche and just
the tall dark stranger saves her, you know. You know, it's a lot of you know, it's a archetypal, archetypical, I'm not using the right word, but it's like it's hitting all the cliches because that's what it's made to do. It's you know, the satirical.
It's very Star Wars in some ways. Like, you know, Wesley's kind of Luke, and if Leia was, you know, not his sister and he married her, you know, that's what Buttercup is. And then you have Inigo and you know, Fezzik is kind of Han and Chewie.
Yeah.
You say that, I'm trying to put Wesley and Buttercup in place of Leon and Ashley right now. and just like playing through Resident Evil 4 in my head right now. I think it works better than you might think.
Oh my god!
We need somebody to mod it now.
With Vizic as Ramon Salazar.
No, Vicini would definitely be Salazar. Would be the village leader, and then I guess Humperdinck would be oh gosh,
Inigo has got to be Luis Serra.
Yeah.
The people of Florin have contracted the virus from that game.
Yeah, they've contracted La Plaga. So the United States is going to use all of its vast resources and send one guy to go into what was it called? Fairyland. Where is this place?
Florin.
Yeah. Thank you.
The U.S. government was like, nose goes.
Rescue Buttercup.
Oh, sorry, Humperdinck is Sadler. That's his name.
Yeah.
From Resi 4.
Oscar Sadler.
Good call. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before I toss it, Ryan? Anything else about?
Final thoughts. Yeah, it's classic. I mean, what else can you say about Princess Bride that hasn't already been said?
Kind of with you on that.
Yeah, this is the movie you introduce, to your kids when they are starting to get introduced to more complicated themes.
That's a good way to put it. Kevin, what are your final thoughts on it?
I mean, you have to go in expecting the cheesiness, but it's such a great film, and like that's what makes it such a good. I think it's a good family movie all around. I mean, like probably like a little on the older side, like maybe like 9 to 12 to start. Just because of the whole "you killed my father, you son of a bitch," which is wonderful. It's just such a great fantasy epic. Like it hit all the right notes. I mean, there was, every emotion under the sun. There's humor. There's, tragedy, in the loss, and, but it all like comes together and, they solve this. However, there is one giant plot hole. There's one that I will just say, and he's in the pit of despair and he's screaming down there, and all of a sudden everybody in the vicinity can magically hear him
for miles.
Number one. Yeah, for miles around, number one. Number two, how does Inigo know that the man in black was associated with Buttercup, who was getting married? Like that was never said. He never got he never got the Man in Black's backstory or even knew who the hell he was.
How did he know?
So there is no way that he knew.
I guess all he could piece together is that like, oh, he was chasing her. He must want something to do with her. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he says something like that.
So it's a stretch. However, I think we all give it a pass because everything else is so great across the board. But like I did have to mention the plot hole because if I'm giving a movie, the overall spiel, I'm also going to mention one other funny. There's like two things. Like one, Humperdinck. It didn't click in my brain that he's the one that hired the 3 that kidnapped Buttercup in the first place to blame it on Gilder, to Gilder in the first place, which I thought was an interesting, take once you realize he's like, I'm very busy, I'm gonna kill my wife by kill my
I have a wife to kill.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that I find so funny is on the cliff sequence when Inigo is up there and he's like getting so impatient to have him come up, he's like I hate waiting, and he's like and like Wesley's just down there and he's like I'm sorry, but I'm trying to concentrate here, and he's like, would you trust my word as a Spaniard? He's like, no good. I've dealt with too many Spaniards. Yes, exactly. Just that. What a friend. That whole sequence, and then finally, he's like, "Was there anything you'd say that would make me trust you?" And he's like, "Nope." And he's like, "I swear on the sword of my father, you will make it to the top." Like he's so honorable.
Throw me the rope.
I love that. Yeah, throw me the rope. Yes, it's just so great. So I'll just leave it on that and just say one more time, as you wish.
Yeah, man, you raise a couple of excellent points. I'll say one of the other, not a plot hole per se, but like what sort of blanket or cloth did they have on Andre the Giant that didn't like severely like burn his face up? But that's neither here nor there. But I think your overall point of like the calculus, and each of us do it to our own, extent, however we will, about like what we will allow movies to get away with and what we kind of won't. And it varies movie to movie. There's just no rhyme or reason. Each of us just kind of interprets it ourselves. But I think it kind of does speak to just how universally good this movie is, that most of us are like, yeah, there's this thing, but I'm fine with it.
I think the movie just has so much good karma built up that like you just forgive it, that like, because it was like, how did he know that that Wesley was the man in black and that he was pursuing Buttercup he knew that he was pursuing Buttercup, but he didn't know that was him doing the screaming, or that he was in love with her. I'm pretty sure. Did he mention love at all in that exchange, like during the fight between Wesley?
No. Yeah. All they talked about was Inigo's backstory. They never said anything about Wesley's backstory at all.
I didn't think so either.
Right. So yeah.
He didn't even get introduced as the Dread Pirate Roberts until Buttercup was like, I know who you are. You're the Dread Pirate Roberts. And he's like, at your service, sort of deal.
Good calls.
I'll just say, the Pit of Despair should be like the whole Pee Wee Herman is like, go ahead and scream your head off. You're miles from anyone can hear you.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to like the rules of the universe you set up in any movie or whatever. It's like it has to be consistent. That definitely was kind of, even this time I was like, what the hell? But anyway, Daniel-san, what are your final thoughts on the movie?
Anything I say at this point will be stuff that either I've already said or it'll
Rambling.
be points that everyone else has already said. What Ryan said about Buttercup, being kind of this vestigial character. I mean, not really, because she drives the entire movie, because Wesley is just chasing her the entire time. But but her character really but yeah, I agree with Ryan's assertion that her character could have been better fleshed out.
She was just very passive. And
yes, that's a great way to put it. Like I also agree. I also agree with how the movie kind of like you said it earlier, threads the needle. It could have been a really awful movie, if it had gone in barely a different direction. It could have been so bad. And but it manages to hit such a beautiful balance, and I love it. It's got a few little flaws here and there, but honestly, no, I'm not complaining.
I'm with you, man, and I think that's a great way to wrap it up. I kind of agree with everybody, what all you said. It's another wonderful deep dive into a movie that I've never really sat down and talked about this movie before, but it's awesome to kind of like hear everybody's thoughts, and I'm not just completely crazy for kind of enjoying this movie as much as I do. Not one that I watch all the time, but definitely a fun one to just kind of leave on in the background. But anyways, that'll do it for us. Thank you everybody so much for watching today. To Austin, Daniel, Ryan, and Kevin, thank you so much for joining me. Ryan, it was great to have you here, man. I can't wait to have you back.
Yeah.
Ryan will be on here a lot more. He might be pimping out some artwork for us, so can't wait for that.
Yes.
We'll see. We will see. But everybody, please remember to like and subscribe. We will kind of post our schedule to be as it unfolds, get this edited. Hopefully you all will be watching this tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. So super pumped about that. But anyways, until next time, guys, be excellent to each other.
Have fun storming the castle.